The Masai Mara was quiet that afternoon. Not peaceful quiet. Empty quiet. The kind that happens right before something goes wrong. A caracal named Raka moved through the dry grass without making a single sound. She was lean, fast, and sharp. Her ears stood tall with black tips pointing straight up, turning left and right, catching every small movement around her. She had not eaten since the night before. Her body knew it. Her eyes were locked and focused. She was hunting. The wind shifted slightly and she stopped. Something was in the air. Not the smell of prey. Not danger either. Something else. Something she had never smelled during a hunt before. She turned her head slowly toward a small open patch of ground about 30 steps ahead. 3 tiny shapes were lying there together in the dirt. She lowered her body and moved closer, each step careful and slow. Her tail moved behind her, low and still. From a distance they looked like nothing. Just small lumps on bare ground. But as she got closer, the smell got stronger. Warm, fresh, alive. Newborn puppies. 3 of them. Each one smaller than her paw. Their eyes were completely shut. Their legs could not hold them. They moved in slow, weak circles, pressing into each other, searching for warmth that the open ground could not give them. Their fur was still damp. They had been born only a few hours ago. And they were completely alone. No mother nearby. No shelter. Nothing protecting them from the heat, from predators, from anything. Just 3 helpless bodies breathing slowly in the middle of open land. Raka was now close enough to see their tiny chests rising and falling. She had been in this position before. Small animal, no defense, no escape. In her world, this moment had one meaning. One outcome. She was a predator. This was prey. The whole situation was that simple. She crouched lower. Her back legs pressed into the ground. Then one of the puppies made a sound. It was not loud. It was not a bark or a cry. It was just a thin, weak call. The kind of sound that travels into the chest and sits there. Raka's ears snapped forward immediately. She held perfectly still. The puppy called again. Raka did not move forward. She did not pull back either. She just stayed low and listened. Her eyes moved across the 3 small bodies slowly. Their mouths were opening and closing. Their paws were pushing against each other, searching for something they could not name. She had never seen anything this small survive alone out here. Nothing this small survived alone out here. She stayed crouched for a long moment. Then, slowly she stood up. Walked 1 full circle around them. Stopped. Looked at the open land around her. And sat down beside them. The sun was moving across the sky and the ground was getting hotter. Raka sat beside the 3 puppies without touching them. She was not relaxed. Her ears kept moving, scanning the area around her constantly. Every few seconds her eyes would lift and check the grass, the trees, the open land. She was aware of everything. But she did not leave. The puppies had settled slightly after she sat down. Her body blocked the direct wind. Her warmth reached them without her even making contact. The smallest one had stopped its thin crying and was now pressed against the side of the second one, breathing steadily. This was not something Raka understood. She had no puppies of her own. She had never raised anything. She was a solitary animal. She lived alone, hunted alone, moved alone. Caring for another creature was not part of her life. Yet here she was. An hour passed. Then the sound of heavy movement came from the north side of the grass. Not fast. Not sneaking. Just heavy, confident steps that pressed into the ground with weight. The kind of steps that do not hide because they do not need to. Raka heard it before she saw anything. She stood immediately. Every muscle in her body pulled tight. She placed herself directly in front of the puppies, facing the direction of the sound. Her tail dropped low. Her eyes narrowed. A male lion stepped out of the tree line. His name was Kofi. He was large, fully grown, with a dark mane that sat heavy around his neck and shoulders. He had been moving through this part of the Mara since early morning, following different scent trails, marking his boundaries, doing what dominant lions do. He stopped the moment he saw Raka. His eyes moved from her to the ground behind her. He could smell the puppies already. Newborn scent travels fast in dry air. He stood completely still, reading the situation in front of him. A caracal. Standing guard. Over something on the ground. His tail moved once behind him. Kofi was not hungry. That was not the issue. The issue was that this was his territory and what he was seeing did not make any sense to him. A wild cat guarding prey it had not eaten. He had never seen this before. His instinct told him to walk forward and take control of the situation. He took 1 step. Raka did not run. She stood her ground. She was maybe 1/5 of his size. Her head reached just below his chest. She had no chance against him and she knew it. But she did not move backward. She did not show her teeth. She just stood there, square between him and the puppies, completely still. Kofi stopped again. He looked at her. Then passed her at the ground. One of the puppies made a small sound. Kofi's ears moved forward. That small sound changed something in the air. Kofi stood still and just listened. The puppy called again, weak and thin, the kind of sound that had no aggression in it, no warning, nothing dangerous. Just pure need. He lowered his head slightly and looked past Raka at the three small bodies on the ground. They were moving in slow circles, bumping into each other, completely unaware of how close they were to not existing anymore. Kofi had cubs of his own. 3 of them living with their mother 2 miles east of where he was standing right now. He knew this sound. Not from prey. From his own young. The sound of something newly alive that cannot yet help itself. He exhaled slowly through his nose. Raka watched him without blinking. She had not moved a single step. Her whole body was still locked and ready, even though she understood perfectly that if Kofi decided to move forward, there was nothing she could actually do to stop him. She was not strong enough. She was not big enough. But she was still standing there. Kofi took one more slow step forward, not toward the puppies, just closer to the whole situation. He dropped his head low and breathed in deeply. Raka adjusted her position slightly, not retreating, just shifting her weight, keeping herself between him and the ground behind her. Kofi raised his head and looked at her directly. Something passed between them in that moment. Not communication the way humans communicate. No words, no gestures. Just 2 animals reading each other with complete attention. Kofi saw no aggression in her. No hunger either. What he saw was an animal that had made a decision and was holding it. He sat down. Not far, not close. Just sat down on the open ground and stayed there. His massive body settled into stillness. His eyes moved to the puppies once more, watched them for a moment, then looked out at the surrounding land. He was not leaving. But he was not threatening either. Raka remained standing for another full minute. Then slowly, carefully, she lowered herself back down beside the puppies. Her body curved around them slightly. The smallest puppy pressed into her warmth immediately. Kofi watched all of this quietly. And stayed. The afternoon heat began to ease slowly. Shadows stretched longer across the dry ground. The grass around them moved gently in the warm wind. Raka lay still beside the puppies, her breathing steady and calm now. Kofi sat a short distance away, not watching them every second anymore but present. His eyes moved across the surrounding land in long, slow sweeps. For almost 2 hours, nothing disturbed this strange, silent arrangement. Then Raka's ears snapped up. She had caught something in the wind before anything was visible. She lifted her head and turned toward the southern grass. Her body did not tense the way it did when she sensed danger. It was something else. Something familiar to the puppies even though they had never actually learned it yet. A dog came running out of the grass. She was not large. Medium-sized, brown and white, with thin legs and tired eyes. Her name was Saba. She had been searching for hours, moving in wide broken circles across the land, following the scent of her own puppies through heat and open ground. Her body showed exactly how hard she had been running. Her sides were moving fast with each breath. Her paws were dusty up to her legs. She broke out of the grass and stopped completely. In front of her was a lion. Beside her puppies was a wild cat. Her body dropped low immediately. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to run. Her ears flattened against her head. A small, broken sound escaped her throat without her meaning it to. She could not move forward. She could not go back either. Her eyes were fixed on the 3 small bodies on the ground. They were still moving. Still breathing. Still alive. Raka lifted her head toward Saba slowly. No aggression in her posture. No tension. She held eye contact with her for a brief moment, then looked down at the puppies, then back at Saba. It was the clearest signal she could give. Kofi did not stand up. He did not turn toward Saba. He simply shifted his body slightly sideways and looked away, removing himself from the center of her attention. Saba took one shaking step forward. Then another. Her eyes never left her puppies. Saba reached her puppies and collapsed beside them. She began checking them immediately, licking each one from head to tail, counting them with her nose, making sure every small body was whole and breathing. Her movements were fast and shaking at first, then slowly they became softer as the reality settled into her. They were alive. All 3. Warm, breathing, unharmed. She pulled them under her body and curled tightly around them. For a moment she looked up at Raka, who was now standing a few steps back, watching quietly. There was no way to measure what passed between them in that look. Saba was not a wild animal built for reading complex situations. But even she held still for that one moment before looking back down at her puppies. Raka watched for a little longer. Then she turned and walked into the grass without looking back. No pause. No ceremony. She disappeared the same way she always moved through the world. Alone and silent. Kofi stood up slowly, his full height returning to him as he rose. He looked at Saba once, not with hunger, not with dominance, just a long, flat look. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction, back toward the tree line, back toward his own territory and his own life. Within a minute, both of them were gone. Saba lay with her puppies as the sun dropped lower and the Mara cooled around her. The same open ground that had been so dangerous just hours ago was now just ground again. Ordinary. Quiet. The puppies fed and slept pressed against their mother, completely unaware of everything that had happened while they were waiting for her. They would never know how close that afternoon came to ending differently. They would never know the names of the two animals that stayed when they had every reason to leave. They would just grow. Get stronger. Learn to open their eyes. Learn to run. And somewhere out in the same stretch of land, Raka moved through the evening grass hunting again, alone again as if the afternoon had never happened. But it had happened. 3 newborn lives made it to the next morning because 2 predators chose to pause. Not out of weakness. Not out of confusion. Just awareness. And sometimes that is the rarest thing in the wild.